So, I've heard you say that we all deal with mental health issues as part of the human condition. So, whether it's anxiety, whether it's grief and loss, depression, or that inner struggle with our self worth, what are some ways that we can really work with our mental health?
Well, first of all, I think to wrap ourselves with self compassion
Mm,
and understand that our mental health is a normal response to our genetic predispositions and our levels of stress and our levels of self care and support.
right,
Does not mean we're crazy.
right.
Uh,
Hello, my extraordinary women friends. Welcome back to Extraordinary Women Radio. In our recent episodes, we have focused on the topic of sales, money, and raising capital, uncovering the strategies and mindsets that drive success. Today, we are going to continue this important trend by exploring the intricate psychology of money with our esteemed guest, Joyce Marter. Joyce is globally recognized as a mental health thought leader, specializing in the psychology of success. Her insights have been featured in top media outlets such as CNN, MSN, Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, and MTV, making her a sought after voice in understanding the complex relationship between our financial health and our mental well being. As the author of the book, The Financial Mindset Fix, a mental fitness program for an abundant life, and a valued contributor to Psychology Today, MoneyGeek, Choosing Therapy, and more, Joyce brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to our conversation. Today, Joyce will share not only the journey of how she built and successfully sold a multi-million-dollar outpatient mental health company, but also share how she became fascinated with the psychology of money. We'll explore the vital connections between mental health and financial wealth, offering insights into how we can all foster a healthier relationship with our finances to lead more abundant lives. Prepare, my friends, to be inspired as Joyce Marter guides us through understanding the psychological underpinnings of our financial decisions and how to achieve mental fitness for a truly abundant life. Let's meet Joyce Marter. Welcome to Extraordinary Women Radio. Joyce, it's so great to have you here today.
oh my gosh, Cami, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk with you.
Oh, I'm excited to hear your stories and your wisdom. And I know our listeners are going to love what you teach. It's you and I got to meet not too long ago. Megan Conter, the founder of the Dames, introduced us, and so it was really fun to get to connect with you and meet you. And now I'm looking forward to getting to know you even more deeply.
Likewise, I'm so glad she connected us, and I
Oh,
love
she's
the
such a
day.
good connector. She's always connecting great women, so it's always fun. Totally fun. So tell me how you became interested in the psychology of money. How did that become part of your repertoire?
Well, I always joke that we therapists, we tend to specialize in our own issues.
Yeah.
So, so I am an entrepreneur. I founded, built, and successfully sold an outpatient mental health company, not without making 1,000 mistakes. And I
Mhm.
learned many important lessons. And one of them was about my own psychology of money. So,
Mm.
my father was born during the Great Depression. So, he understandably had a scarcity mindset around money. And when I was
Yeah.
an adolescent, he was unemployed during the automotive recession and dealt with clinical depression. And so I grew up with a lot of shame and anxiety and fear and kind of disconnect around money because we lived in a nice house, but because my father was unemployed for so long, there was tremendous worry that the money would run out.
Mhm.
And I believe as a therapist, I've been practicing for 25 years, that we all unconsciously recreate the familiar until we become aware and we choose something different.
Mm.
So, interestingly, my own scarcity mindset, I started my business with $500 and 50,000 of student loans and set out to have an insurance friendly mental health company and ended up in cash flow hell because the bigger we got, the more money was outstanding in insurance. And I ended
Mhm.
up using skills from my clinical training and along with the help of so many other people was able to successfully turn the ship around and frankly transform my whole life. I
Mm.
also noticed something even prior to this, early on in my practice as a therapist in the Chicago area. I was working mostly with high functioning professionals dealing with depression, anxiety, substance misuse issues, relationship conflict, etc. And I noticed something really curious that as my clients made progress in therapy, they started to earn more money. So
Mm.
client after client was coming in reporting raises and promotions and starting their own businesses and side hustles. And at the time I was confused because we weren't talking about finances or even their career for that matter. We were treating
Right.
their mental health issues.
Yeah.
But I realized that for all of us, it's our underlying self-worth and when we embrace our self-worth and our unique gifts, and we practice self-acceptance in the ways that we're growing and learning, and we align our gifts with the need in the world to the greatest extent possible, we are willing to expand our comfort zones. We will advocate for ourselves, we'll negotiate, and with that comes a financial return.
Mm.
And
That's
so
amazing that you could see those patterns happening within your practice and see the transformation that was happening when you weren't even working on that part of their lives.
isn't that interesting? And I'm not the
Yeah.
only one. Author Susie Orman, of
Yeah.
course, the financial best-selling author and advisor, said she noticed the exact same thing in her financial practice.
Yeah.
That she said self-worth leads to net worth, but it
Yeah.
does not work the other way around. Because we all
Mm.
know many people who have not done their inner work,
Right.
who are miserable, even though they have
Right.
a lot of money,
Right.
but when we do our inner work, to me, it's psycho-spiritual work,
It totally is,
then
isn't it? I mean, that's, I like that word, psycho-spiritual.
we fall into the flow of abundance.
Yeah.
We believe in ourselves, we get aligned with, I believe, purpose and meaning in our life, and when we do that with courage and love and compassion for ourselves and others, there's a financial return.
Yeah. Can you share some of that journey that you had to go through, as you were in that cash flow crunch, and what was some of that journey that you personally had to go through?
I will tell you, Cami, it was one of the most difficult experiences I've been through in my life. I had insomnia and panic attacks because I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to pay my therapist on time or my rent on time. And honestly, sometimes I couldn't.
Mhm.
It was
Mhm.
horribly embarrassing. I wore a mask to the world
Mm.
around me that everything was
Mhm.
okay and
Right.
suffered in silence. And that was one of the biggest mistakes that I made. And
Mm.
unfortunately, it cost me my business partner, who was one of my best friends.
Mhm.
When we ended up in cash flow hell, she was like, "This is way too stressful. I can't deal with this. I'm out." And so she left very suddenly, and understandably, many of our staff weren't confident in the business, so they
Right.
left, our
Right.
clients left. I thought I was going to have to file bankruptcy, and I truly felt broken open.
Mhm.
And that experience taught me a lot of humility. And
Mm.
it taught me the importance of accessing support. Probably
Yeah.
one of the biggest mistakes I ever made was I didn't seek proper business and financial consultation when
Mhm.
I set up my practice
Mhm.
because I was afraid and I was embarrassed. I was afraid of somebody saying your business model doesn't work and your
Mm.
dream is not going to come to fruition.
Oh gosh.
And
And
I
how
was
many people
embarrassed.
do that, right? They sit back and they're like, I'm just going to push through this and I'm just going to make it work. Um,
So dumb. I
yeah.
suffered so
Wow.
much because of that. And once I asked for help, help came out of the woodwork. I had a
Mm.
neighbor say, "Joyce, you need a business valuation." And I said, "What's that?" I'm a therapist, I'm not business trained. And I met with his CPA. I handed my QuickBooks file over. I was in tears. And he called me 2 days later and he said, "Joyce, you truly have a cash flow problem and I can help you get proper lending, your business model works and your business is actually worth a
Mm.
7-figure multiple,
Yeah. And you were
which
like, what?
well, my former business partner had just walked away from it because we were looking at the scarcity, at the lack and the debt.
Mm.
I said, "How is that possible? We're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt." And he said, "The business model works. You're behind on the insurance payments and proper lending will help you." But that really taught me a lot about myself in terms of, I would say I'm a recovering codependent. I think like many caretaking women, and I put everyone before myself. And my CPA had to do a little intervention. He was like, "Joyce, you're not running a charity to
Pay
employ
yourself.
therapists." And he was like, "You have to earn a profit." And I had to work on my own money guilt and money anxiety and realize that when we have more, we can help more.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
about greed or excess or selfishness. When we
Yeah.
expand and shine our light, then I was able to hire more, pay people better, give them better health insurance, have student interns and provide pro bono counseling and sliding fee counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really consider it my purpose and passion to remove the shame and stigma around both mental health and financial stress
Yeah.
and let people know that I'm here to provide practical tools to heal, recover, thrive, and prosper.
Yeah. And there's so many of us have our, we all have stories in money. I mean, every single one of us has a story in money. And so what do you recommend to our listeners is like, how do they dive into their stories and bring those to life and their understanding? Um, over the course of the years, I've done a lot of like, done a lot of training in that space just for myself because that was,
Yes.
definitely something. And so I know like one of my stories was my father worked really hard. And so it was like I always said, "Oh, you have to work hard. You have to just like be on this grind mode to have a lot of money." And I was like, I caught myself in that at one point. I'm like, "Wait a minute, is that the story I want to live in? Do I want to change this up?" And so that's been one of my stories that I've had to really work with. But how do people dive into their stories?
Well, I always say we're not only the protagonist of our own money story, we can also choose to be the author. So, what, so one of the first steps is really looking at your family history,
Yeah.
at your parents, your grandparents. Was there any intergenerational financial trauma?
Hmm. Yeah.
And if there was, then that's passed down through our epigenetics, through our
Yeah.
DNA.
Yeah. Which
And
is so fascinating to me.
it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
how our mind and body responds to money stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those neural pathways are those belief systems are there genetically and we
Yeah.
learn them growing up, whatever our
Yeah.
parents
Yeah.
taught us about what being rich means. Maybe they taught us rich people are bad and greedy
Yeah.
and selfish, or the
Or
opposite.
salespeople. So that's another one is even, having salespeople call in the house. That was one I definitely carried for. Oh, those salespeople.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? And
Yeah.
so if we believed that and then we're an entrepreneur, do you
Yeah.
think we're going to succeed in sales?
Exactly.
Probably not, because we
Yeah. You
associate
definitely have to get
sales with
over that
being a
one.
jerk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
have to recognize those irrational belief systems. And it's cognitive behavioral therapy. So becoming
Hmm.
aware of our self talk, aware of those irrational belief systems,
Mm.
and then replacing those with more affirming messages. And it's also about empowering ourselves. And I'm especially impassioned about that for women
Hmm.
because unfortunately in my counseling practice, even among highly educated, powerful women, so many of us are not financially literate
Hmm.
and do not have the power and control financially in our partnerships.
Yeah.
And that can lead to loss of power and control in so many other aspects of the relationship. And
Yeah. So
so
having
it's
really good partners, just like you found your CPA that was like, wait a minute here.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. And having those advocates, whether it's, a financial planner, an accountant, an accountability partner, there are even 12-step groups that are free and anonymous for money
Mm-hmm.
issues like Overspenders Anonymous, Under
Mm-hmm.
Earners Anonymous, Debtors Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous. And all of those programs can help us really gain insight into our psychology of money.
Mm-hmm.
What are our thoughts, our belief systems? Do we have an issue with compulsive spending? Or on the other end, are we hoarding?
Right.
you know, Money's
Right.
about flow and balance.
Right.
And when there's scarcity mindset and trauma, we can err on either side.
Yeah. I just
Um,
had a conversation with another interview that just launched this week and with Amy Westbrook, and she was talking about how women often have that that scarcity mindset and don't spend. That's one that they kind of like they grasp at a lot of funds. And so do you find that differences between men and women and how they look at that?
well, I think that I always say that healthy self esteem is midway between diva and doormat. And dudes can be divas too.
Yes.
And the diva or divo tends to be an overspender. They
Mm-hmm.
might be entitled, they might be a little grandiose, a little bit aggressive in terms of other people's boundaries, and they might live beyond their means financially.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then there's the doormat, and the doormat is not respectful of his or her own boundaries and maybe
Right.
under earners. And I think as women, we're socialized to be people pleasers, to put others before ourselves. And we're caretakers often of other people in our families and communities. And so I would say, in general, that there are a lot of women that fall in that doormat category, but
Mm-hmm.
men can be doormats and women
Yeah.
can be
It really
divas.
can be depend on some of the things that you talked about that background and what they grew up with, and it's interesting. It's really really interesting. So, I've heard you say that we all deal with mental health issues as part of the human condition. So whether it's anxiety, whether it's grief and loss, depression, or that inner struggle with our self worth, what are some ways that we can really work with our mental health?
Well, first of all, I think to wrap ourselves with self compassion
Mm,
and understand that our mental health is a normal response to our genetic predispositions and our levels of stress and our levels of self care and support.
right,
Does not mean we're crazy,
right.
does not mean we're in crisis and we're losing it. But really extend ourselves the same compassion and empathy that we would extend to somebody who we love very much,
Yeah.
and to be really mindful of stigma. And like, for example, I remember when I was in graduate school and I learned about bipolar disorder, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure I really want to work with people with bipolar disorder, because I was imagining somebody with a chronic mental health issue and kind of lower functioning. And what's by people with bipolar disorder are like you and me, Cami,
Yeah.
highly successful, amazing people. It's a brain disorder. It's not a weakness. It's not somebody's fault. And treatment can be life changing and life saving. And so
Right.
it's turned out to be one of the most favorite populations that I've had the honor of working with. And so I think just recognizing we're all hardwired different ways. I
Yeah.
remember when I started graduate school at Northwestern, I was afraid the professors were going to see that I personally have an anxiety disorder, and that
Mhm.
they were going to say, you can't be a therapist. You've got your own mental health issues. But thankfully, they recommended counseling for all of us and
Mhm.
training. And
Mhm.
it was transformative for me. I mean, my
Yeah.
voice used to shake in class. I dealt with horrible imposter syndrome and low self esteem. And it's still something I have to work on, but
Yeah.
I've come far, and I
Yeah.
believe we all can in our
Yeah.
healing. Help is available and effective.
Yeah. So as entrepreneurs, I mean, we have our own special, unique, blend of mental things, stories that can go on for us ourselves. What do you see in the entrepreneurial space? And, what, I mean, the thing that I see often is a lot of some of the things you're just talking about. It's like the not enoughisms, the self-doubt, who am I to own this message? Playing smaller, all those sorts of
All of that.
things. Yeah,
Perfectionism, imposter
exactly. Oh, that's
syndrome,
another really good one, right? Yeah.
comparing our insides to other people's outsides, fear
Hmm.
of success, fear of failure,
And we run
fear
it. I
of
mean, I run into that every day
bullying.
still, right? It's like stuff that still shows up. And it's like even all the inner work and I always say that being an entrepreneur is like our biggest personal growth journey that we can go on. And I actually say it's a spiritual journey.
It
Um,
is. I would
and,
agree.
and, and I've done a lot of work there, but it still always shows up. So I think your point of that we always are working on our personal growth, whatever that looks like.
For sure. I always say our personal and professional success are two sides of the same coin. And
Hmm.
so if our mental and physical and spiritual health isn't good, that's going to
Hmm.
show up in our business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we have to take care of ourselves in that way, and we will play small and we will hold back.
Yeah.
So my book is really a program to work on those mental health aspects. And
Hmm.
even another one is healthy detachment. So if, for example, if we pin our happiness to expectations and outcome, or if
Mm.
weren't able to somewhat detach from risk aversion or risk loss
Mhm.
of assets, then that
Mhm.
would keep us from being an entrepreneur. So we have to have
Right.
some healthy separation
Yeah.
from outcome.
Right. That's a really good one. That's a good point because I think so often we get wrapped up in, this is the goal I'm trying to get to, and we're an impatient group as entrepreneurs. We always want to get there faster than so it's this really not attaching how happy we are to that outcome is I think really important. I love that message.
It- our business success, our financial success is how we are. It's not who we are.
Mhm.
And who we are is our light within, and the success and the money can come and go, but we
Yeah.
are always worthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And our life isn't always a clear path of upward trajectory. We have setbacks, and that's a normal part of the human experience. But viewing that with gratitude and a growth mindset is really important, and really honoring and taking care of yourself and accessing support, during the process.
Tell us about your book and what it's about and what prompted you to write it now.
My book is based on a talk that I've given for probably 20 years called The Psychology of Success.
Mm,
And I noticed after counseling tens of thousands of clients, 12 skills or mindsets that lead to holistic success.
hmm.
And then when I worked with a researcher, we found that they are empirically supported to improve both mental health and financial health. So each chapter is one of those mindsets like presence, awareness, essence, positivity, compassion, resilience, and more. And I have journaling prompts and innovative exercises where people can measure themselves on how well they're doing in each area, exercises from different theoretical orientations of counseling. And it's a holistic success program. And it's
Yeah,
so much fun to hear people responding to it and transforming their lives.
right. That's so cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. I got a copy of it and I really enjoyed reading it. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's humbling as a first time author. Book sales are a
No, I
little bit
know.
you've been there.
I have been there. It's like,
Oh,
it's really, it's so much work and effort to put together a great book. And, there's so much work on the backside of it, the marketing of the book and putting it out into the world. So my book
yes,
came out in 2016. So it's still, you know, it had a lot of marketing around it up front, but I'm like, I should probably market that more today.
for
So
sure. For sure.
yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I've had nice things happen. Like it's been published in 4 languages. It won 8
Oh,
book
that's awesome.
awards, which is cool. But Yeah, it's, like any entrepreneurial effort, it's, there's humbling aspects. We're
Yep.
all learning and growing, and there are sometimes wins and disappointments.
Yeah.
But I think one thing psychologically that separates entrepreneurs apart from others is tenacity and
Yes.
perseverance. We
Hmm.
are resilient, we get back up, and we try again. So I'm going to
Yep.
write my next book,
Yep.
and then my best friend who's a therapist accuses me of psychotic optimism. And I think we as entrepreneurs have that too, like that
We do.
hope.
Well, we need to have that.
Yeah, the blinders that we're gonna achieve it. And
Exactly.
we need that to keep going and change the world.
I love it. I so love it. So your business has changed since you had all of your therapists. So tell us what your business is today and what your work is today.
Yeah, so to wrap up that story, I was able to successfully sell my business for more
Hmm.
money than I would have ever imagined making in a lifetime.
Kudos. I love it.
Thank you. But of course, we have to still work on our money mindset, or I could make it go away like the football players or people who win the lottery. So that's still part of the work. And then today, I am a national keynote speaker and corporate trainer. So
Excellent.
I travel the country, even the globe, speaking at annual conferences and events and giving trainings for workplaces. I'm known as America's workplace therapist. So I speak a lot about mental health in the workplace and mindfulness in the workplace, about culture and how
Mm,
to improve well-being, especially during these challenging times.
that's so good and so needed. Because I think the whole corporate world, there's so many challenges there from the perspective of the changes that we've come through at post COVID and where businesses are going. I think it's really important that and I see companies really starting to take much greater interest in the well-being of their employees, and I think that's really good.
I think it's the silver lining of the pandemic is that there's
Yep.
much greater mental health awareness,
Yep.
and employers are realizing their staff is their greatest asset. And
Totally.
frankly, most of us are burnt out and dealing with economic uncertainty and so many other stressors as there's, global tensions going around the world, and an increased awareness of systemic racism and discrimination and how that shows up in the workplace, and how to create a culture that's psychologically safe and affirmative for everyone. It's
Hmm.
important stuff. And so
It's
I'm glad
important
it's
work for
really
sure.
being addressed. Yeah.
Yeah. So where can people learn more about you, your book, and your work?
Thank you. My website is joycemarter.com. So JoyceMarter.com. And my book is The Financial Mindset Fix. It's on Amazon. It's on Kindle, hardcover, and Audible. So if you have an Audible credit, that might be an easy way to get it.
The final question I always close with is, what are three pearls of wisdom you'd like to leave our audience with today?
Oh my gosh. I would say the first one is to embrace your worth, and you are
Mm.
always worthy.
Mm-hmm.
And the second would be to align your gifts with a need in the world to the greatest extent possible.
Mm.
And the third would be to live life openly, authentically, and lovingly in alignment with the highest good of yourself and others.
Mm. So good. Joyce, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you for bringing all your good wisdom, your stories. Really appreciate it. And I'm excited to have you join into my mastermind to share share some of your wisdom to my mastermind community as well. So they're going to love
Thank
you.
you for having me. I'm
Oh,
excited.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it, Tammy.
You
Thank you.
bet. Well, have a good day.
You too.